Over 60, never overlook these 5 cheeses that fight aging muscles. When most of us think about cheese, the first thing that comes to mind is that it's unhealthy, too much fat, too much salt, and definitely not something that's good for the heart. But the truth is, when you choose wisely, certain cheeses can actually be one of the strongest allies your body has in the fight against age-related muscle loss. If you're over 60, your body is quietly battling a condition called sarcopenia, which is the gradual loss of muscle mass and strength. By the time many of us reach our 70s, we've already lost up to a quarter of the muscle we had in our younger years. That's why simple everyday activities, carrying groceries, climbing stairs, or even standing up from a chair, can feel harder than they used to. What's even more concerning is that more than 90% of older adults in the U.S. don't get enough of the right nutrients to stop this process. And let me ask you, have you noticed yourself feeling weaker over the past few years, even though you try to eat healthy? Do you sometimes feel more tired than you should, even after a full night's sleep? Or maybe your balance isn't quite what it used to be. If so, you're not alone. These are often signs that your muscles aren't getting the support they need. The good news is, the solution doesn't have to come from expensive supplements or complicated diets. In fact, it may already be sitting in your refrigerator. Yes, cheese. Not just any cheese, but 5 specific types that are scientifically proven to help you rebuild muscle, protect your bones, boost your energy, and even reduce fatigue. For example, Parmesan is rich in leucine, an amino acid that signals your body to build muscle, while cottage cheese is packed with casein protein, which works overnight to prevent muscle breakdown. A study in the Journal of Nutrition found that older adults who included the right dairy proteins in their diet preserved significantly more muscle and strength than those who didn't. Another large study showed that seniors who consumed high-quality dairy had up to a 40% lower risk of disability and falls. I've seen this firsthand with many of my patients. Men and women in their 60s, 70s, even 80s who thought weakness was just part of aging discovered that by making simple changes, like adding the right cheeses into their meals, they could regain strength, energy, and independence they thought they had lost for good. In this video, I'll share with you the 5 specific cheeses that can make this difference, along with real stories of people who have used these strategies to completely turn their health around. But before we dive in, let me ask you, which cheese do you eat most often? Leave a comment and let me know. You may already be eating one of the foods that could be protecting your muscles without even realizing it. Why this matters after 60. Muscle loss doesn't happen overnight. It actually begins quietly around age 40, and after 60 the process speeds up dramatically. On average, older adults lose between 3 and 8% of their muscle mass every decade. That may not sound like much at first, but think about it. By the time you're in your 70s or 80s, you may have lost nearly a third of the strength you had in your younger years. That's why your legs might feel weaker, why climbing stairs takes more effort, or why recovering from even a minor illness or injury seems to take longer than it used to. This loss of muscle has real consequences. Weaker muscles mean a higher risk of falls, slower wound healing, and in many cases, a gradual loss of independence. I often ask my patients, do you notice yourself avoiding certain activities, maybe carrying laundry upstairs or gardening, because you're worried about getting too tired or losing your balance? These little changes in your daily life can be early warning signs that sarcopenia is already at work. Now, many people think the solution is to simply take pills or supplements. And while they can help in some cases, food is still the most natural and often the most effective way to stay strong. Protein from whole foods isn't just easier for your body to absorb. It also comes packaged with other nutrients your muscles and bones need to work together. Calcium, vitamin D, phosphorus, and certain amino acids all play a role in keeping your muscles firing and your bones resilient. Here's a powerful fact. A 2019 study in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society found that seniors who consumed more protein from dairy had a 40% lower risk of disability compared to those who didn't. 40%. That's nearly cutting your risk in half. And this isn't just one isolated study. Research from Tufts University also showed that older adults with higher dairy protein intake preserved more lean muscle, performed better in strength tests, and had better balance than those with lower intake. So let me ask you, how much protein do you think you're getting each day? Are you including enough high-quality sources, like lean meats, beans, eggs, or dairy? Or do you find yourself skipping meals or relying on snacks that don't really fuel your muscles? These choices add up, and the earlier you make adjustments, the more strength and independence you'll preserve as the years go on. As a doctor who's worked with older adults for decades, I can tell you, it's never too late to start. Even small changes like adding the right cheeses to your breakfast or evening snack can make a measurable difference in your muscle health, your balance, and your overall energy. The 5 cheeses that fight muscle loss. Number 5. Swiss cheese, the energy stabilizer. Swiss cheese isn't just mild and delicious. It's a powerhouse for keeping your energy steady and your body strong as you age. One of its biggest benefits is vitamin B12. This vitamin is like the electrician of your body. It keeps your nerves and muscles connected so your brain can talk to your body without interference. Without enough B12, you may feel weak, tired, or even off balance. Here's a question for you. Have you noticed tingling in your hands or feet, or maybe more fatigue than usual? Those can be signs of low B12, and it's more common than you think. Nearly 1 in 6 seniors in the U.S. has a deficiency. Swiss cheese also delivers zinc and selenium, 2 minerals that act like shields against oxidative stress. Think of oxidative stress as rust slowly weakening your muscles and joints. These minerals help protect your body from that process, keeping your muscles healthier for longer. The science backs it up. A Harvard study in 2020 found that seniors with higher B12 intake had a 30% lower risk of frailty. That's not just about living longer, it's about staying active, steady on your feet, and independent. George, a 72-year-old from Texas, is a great example. He had been struggling with neuropathy, numbness, and weakness in his hands and feet. After 4 months of adding Swiss cheese into his daily routine, usually melted over steamed veggies or sliced into a whole grain sandwich, he noticed his grip strength was stronger and his balance while walking improved. For him, it wasn't just about food. It was about getting his confidence back. Practical tip: try 1-2 slices of Swiss cheese with lunch or dinner. Pair it with whole grain bread or melt it over broccoli, green beans, or even a baked potato. It's a tasty way to recharge your body and support your muscles and nerves at the same time. Number 4, feta, the bone and muscle protector. Feta isn't just a tasty topping for salads. It's a real ally for protecting both your bones and muscles as you age. This cheese is loaded with calcium and phosphorus, 2 minerals that work hand in hand. Calcium strengthens your bones, while phosphorus helps your muscles contract and recover. Together, they create a powerful shield against fractures and weakness. But here's something most people don't know. Feta also contains CLA, conjugated linoleic acid, a natural compound that helps preserve lean muscle while reducing fat. For older adults, that's huge, because keeping muscle while losing extra fat is the exact formula for staying mobile, energetic, and independent. Now, let me ask you, when was the last time you felt your knees ache going up the stairs, or noticed your balance isn't quite what it used to be? What if part of the solution could be as simple as adding a bit of feta to your meals a few times a week? The science is clear. Studies show that seniors with higher calcium intake from dairy products like feta have stronger bones and a lower risk of falls. And because feta is softer and easier to chew than many aged cheeses, it's especially friendly for older adults who may struggle with harder textures. Helen, a 70-year-old from New York, is a perfect example. She added a small serving of feta to her daily salad, just 1 to 2 ounces with olive oil, cucumber, and tomato, and paired it with light exercise. Within a few months, her bone scans improved, her legs felt stronger, and she said she had more confidence walking around the city without fear of falling. Practical tip: try crumbling feta over a Greek-style salad, mixing it into omelets, or even pairing it with roasted vegetables. It's a simple, delicious way to feed your bones and muscles at the same time. Number 3. Ricotta, the anabolic shield. Ricotta isn't just a creamy cheese for lasagna. It's actually one of the most powerful muscle-protecting foods you can add to your diet. What makes it unique is that it's made from whey, and whey contains lactoferrin, a natural compound shown to lower inflammation and protect muscle cells from breakdown. For older adults, that's a game changer because chronic inflammation is one of the biggest drivers of muscle loss after 60. Another benefit: ricotta helps boost IGF-1, a natural growth factor that declines with age. IGF-1 acts like a signal telling your body it's time to build and repair muscle. Without it, recovery from even simple activities like gardening or walking can take much longer. The research is impressive. A 2023 study published in the American Journal of Physiology found that seniors who ate ricotta cheese daily saw a 35% increase in muscle area and walked noticeably faster compared to those who didn't. Think about that. Just by adding a simple food, people not only built muscle but also regained mobility. Let me ask you this. How often do you feel your legs slowing down, or notice yourself reaching for support when walking around the house? What if a small bowl of ricotta could help turn that around? Imagine finishing a walk or a bit of gardening, then rewarding yourself with half a cup of ricotta spread on whole grain toast or blended into a smoothie. It's not just a snack, it's fuel for repair and growth. I'll share a real-life story. Robert, a 75-year-old from Michigan, struggled with weakness in his legs and relied on a cane for balance. He started adding ricotta after his daily short walks, and after just 9 weeks, he no longer needed that cane. His confidence came back, and he told me it felt like he had added years of independence back into his life. Practical tip: aim for about half a cup of ricotta after activity. You can keep it savory with a drizzle of olive oil and herbs, or make it sweet with a spoonful of honey and some berries. Either way, it's one of the most underrated but powerful tools for protecting muscle and mobility as you age. Number 2. Cottage cheese, the nighttime protector. Cottage cheese may look simple, but it works like a secret weapon while you sleep. What makes it so powerful is casein protein. Unlike whey protein, which digests quickly, casein is slow and steady, feeding your muscles all through the night. For older adults, that's critical because overnight is when muscle breakdown often sneaks in. Think of cottage cheese as a protective shield, keeping your muscles fueled and preventing that gradual loss while your body rests. The science is impressive. A 2022 study published in Nutrients showed that older adults who ate cottage cheese before bed gained 2.5 pounds of lean muscle in just 12 weeks. That's without changing much else in their diet. And here's the kicker. Those gains weren't just numbers on a chart. They translated into stronger legs, better balance, and more independence in daily activities. Let me ask you, what's your usual bedtime snack? Do you reach for cookies, chips, or nothing at all? Imagine swapping that for 3/4 of a cup of cottage cheese with a handful of berries or a sprinkle of cinnamon. It's simple, delicious, and far more powerful for your body than a sugar spike before bed. I've seen this work in real life. Patricia, a 67-year-old from Florida, started this routine as part of her nightly wind down. Within just 2 months, she noticed her leg strength improving. Tasks like standing from a chair or walking across the room felt easier. On top of that, she reported sleeping better, probably because her blood sugar stayed stable through the night. Practical tip: aim for about 3/4 of a cup before bedtime. If you want variety, you can add it to a small bowl of fruit, mix in a spoonful of nut butter, or even use it as a topping for whole grain toast. The key is consistency. Your muscles don't take a night off, and neither should your nutrition. Number 1. Parmesan, the muscle switch. Parmesan isn't just a flavorful topping. It's actually one of the most powerful tools you can add to your diet if you're over 60. What makes it so special is leucine, an amino acid often called the on switch for muscle growth. Think of leucine as the key that unlocks your body's ability to build and repair muscle. Without enough of it, your body struggles to keep up, no matter how much general protein you eat. Parmesan happens to be one of the richest natural sources of leucine, and because it's aged and naturally low in lactose, it's easier to digest, even for those who usually have trouble with dairy. Science backs this up in a big way. A 2021 study published in Clinical Nutrition found that seniors who added Parmesan to their daily meals boosted muscle protein synthesis by 38%. That's a huge difference, essentially flipping the body from muscle breakdown mode to muscle building mode. Other research has shown that leucine-rich foods like Parmesan can help older adults maintain strength, reduce fatigue, and recover faster from everyday physical stress. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you thought about the type of protein you're eating, not just the amount? Are you giving your muscles the signal they need to stay strong? Or are you just filling up on calories without purpose? One of my patients, Margaret, a 67-year-old from Ohio, is a perfect example. She started adding about an ounce of Parmesan a day, sometimes sprinkled on her morning eggs, other times stirred into soups or shaved over a fresh salad. Alongside light exercise, she noticed real changes within 12 weeks. She regained leg strength, her balance improved, and for the first time in years, she could climb the stairs in her home without holding onto the railing. That may sound small, but for her, it was life-changing. Practical tip: aim for 1 to 1.5 ounces of Parmesan daily. That's roughly 2 to 3 tablespoons of grated cheese, an amount you can easily mix into your favorite dishes without feeling like you're eating anything unusual. The goal isn't just to enjoy the flavor. It's to consistently deliver your muscles the fuel they need to stay active and independent. So here's the big picture. Staying strong after 60 isn't just about lifting weights or taking supplements. It's also about choosing the right foods that fuel your body. Parmesan flips the muscle-building switch. Cottage cheese protects your muscles overnight. Ricotta shields you from inflammation. Feta keeps your bones and muscles strong, and Swiss cheese powers your energy and nerves. 5 simple cheeses, 5 powerful tools to help you fight muscle loss, stay active, and keep your independence. Remember, you don't have to overhaul your whole diet in one day. Just start by adding one of these cheeses into your routine. A sprinkle of Parmesan on your eggs, a small bowl of cottage cheese before bed, or a slice of Swiss on your sandwich. These small steps can make a huge difference over time. I'd love to hear from you. Which of these cheeses do you already enjoy? Which one are you going to try first? Share your thoughts in the comments below because your story might inspire someone else who's on the same journey. Thank you so much for watching and spending this time with me. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like, share it with a friend who could use this advice, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on more simple, science-backed tips to stay strong and healthy after 60. Stay well, stay strong, and I'll see you in the next video.